Hey, here we are with our generative AI news briefing from GAI Insights and sponsored by CustomGPT.ai, a fantastic way to get going with your own chatbot using your own data in a safe manner. They have over 50,000 end user customers, very easy to get started. We're very happy to have them as a sponsor for today's news briefing. And guiding us through the really interesting news today is going to be Tanya. Tanya, over to you.
Doing well, thank you, John. Yeah, we have some great articles for today. We are going to review 6 articles. We're going to hear from Microsoft, from Siemens, from Slack, some developments in text-to-speech, and more about agents. So let's get started with the first one on Microsoft. Ankash, please.
Thanks, Tanya. So the first one we have for today is from Microsoft. So Microsoft is saying that US rivals are beginning to use GenAI in some of the offensive cyber attack operations.
Good. And John, would you like to kick us off with the first article, please?
Sure. I was going to make the case for this to be essential, not because it's plowing new ground. I think that any of our AI leaders are going to know that folks are using AI in general and generative AI in particular to do a lot of attacks on cyber security defenses. But I just like the fact that it had a number of specific examples. It's coming from Microsoft and OpenAI together, and this combined with another article we're going to talk about later, I think gives the AI leader, generative AI leader, specific examples that can be used when talking about, what are the needs for, funding and support within the organization to defend against this and really be ready for it. So I read it as essential.
Thank you, John. Any other comments from the team?
I rated it as important. I didn't quite go that far. I think I would be surprised if people don't consider that generative AI is making its way into cyber offensives. I did agree that this was very information dense and gave a lot of really good, useful applications. I wouldn't say they necessarily have to read it today, but again, it's something to put on your list for when you have time over the weekend. So I gave it an important rating.
Yep,
I live with it.
I also gave it an important. What I found very good that the Microsoft OpenAI, they found those attacks and they blocked the users. So they are really seriously working on the defenses, and that's really good, and that's why it's important to know.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think it's important, and it made me think about what I know we don't talk about it in the article, but what's Cisco's role going to be in the future with security and that big investment they're making, because it's a huge opportunity right now, right? How are we going to secure AI? But okay, we'll go with important, and let's move on to the next one on Siemens.
Yes. So this one from Siemens highlights how Siemens is using GenAI on the factory floor and provides insights into some of the use cases Siemens is leveraging AI as well as GenAI for.
Thank you, Ankaj. And Luda, would you like to get started on this article, please?
Yeah, I rated it as important. The reason being, Siemens has been very advanced in leveraging GenAI in its tools, in its own manufacturing operations, and in their platforms. So this is a great article, lists a number of use cases. Some are rather simple, but can actually save a lot of effort and put the data together. For example, they put a small application for the workers online, right? When something breaks, to communicate through a Teams powered by generative AI to communicate what's wrong. And then the app, the bot, puts it into a specific report listing the problems and providing the details so that the central engineering group can fix the problem and can put it into the knowledge of the company, to the knowledge base of the company, so to prevent it from happening in the future. This is small, but really powerful. And there are a number of cases here like that. So I think it is worth a read.
Important. Yes, I agree. And to your point, the you know, a lot of that knowledge gets lost, right? If you can't capture it right there on the spot and make it easy, a lot of those issues get lost, and then the product or the process cannot be improved. So I
So-
give it an important as well. Any other ratings from the team? All right.
I
We'll go.
just thought that was important. What was cool is it really changed the nature of knowledge management. And you can see that, and also the role of, improvement. The other thing that was kind of cool that was more general AI was how quickly they can kind of do a model factory and get you up and going faster. So from breaking ground, greenfield to actual production, I think is also compressing. So it's kind of, it's the arithmetic and the calculus. You know what I mean? It's really quite impressive.
All right, wonderful. We'll go with important on this one. Thank you for the input there. And let's move on to article number 3 on Slack, which I thought it was coincidental that just yesterday we were talking about email, and I had mentioned, hey, we should be really doing more things on Slack and tools like that, because I feel like that's what we use, more in our day-to-day. But Ankush, if you can give us a quick summary, and then Adam can kick us off.
Sure, Tanya. So seems like Slack has added an AI-fueled search and summarization feature to the platform. And this is also interesting because it's not clear whether Slack is doing it itself, or because there was a release from Perplexity founder as well on Twitter, where he talked about adding Perplexity functionalities to Slack. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
All right. So I was on the fence between optional and important. From one view, I thought, okay, look, another product integrating large language models, as we expect them all to be doing, and the news might be who isn't, right? We've had that sort of discussion before. But in this case, Slack is actually a massive player. I was looking, IBM, Uber, Airbnb, Target, Oracle, E-Trade, massive enterprises rely on this for productivity within their workspace. And the real challenge that this addresses is efficiently accessing and leveraging vast amounts of unstructured corporate data, right? In some ways, it's the place sort of like Copilot. But I feel like in some ways, the way companies work together within Slack, this is actually a significant upgrade to the platform. It'll obviously help them financially in terms of the value proposition of staying on their platform or coming to their platform. And for that reason, I ended up bumping it up to an important.
I would agree with important. It's funny, Alan Kay, the guy who invented object-oriented programming and first employed Xerox PARC, I got to know pretty well over the years. And he has this fantastic presentation he does. He talks about the importance of architecture. He said, you look at a pyramid. A pyramid is basically a garbage dump with a nice cover in terms of architecturally. And he compares it to arches. And arches, from a weight to coverage ratio, how much weight the building is compared to how much it covers, arches are 10,000 times more efficient than pyramids. And to me, right now, Slack is a pyramid. It's just a big garbage dump of information. So maybe GenAI will be able to actually bring some architecture to it and make it way more useful.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want not to be contrarian. I like the article. Slack is a massive vendor, right, with lots of people. So I can live with important. But on the other hand, this is everybody's doing it, right? So and the competitor is Teams. In Teams, you can do very similar things that Slack is doing, organize the communications around projects and around themes and the like. And that's what people are using Slack for, and Teams. So I just think that the jury is still out there. So I was thinking optional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michael Novak said, "Say, look, this is a snoozer." But I don't know. So many people use this thing.
That's what I feel. I feel like as far as the space of instant messaging, like Slack is the leader. Yeah, we have Teams. I mean, there are many other platforms, but I feel like Slack kind of got in there, made it very easy and fun. And so people really got attached to it. At least it's my experience. And the ability, right, to upload the documents and all of these things, it just became kind of like a way to work outside of email, where a lot of us were kind of stuck for years. So um, I agree with important, and maybe we'll move on with that with a little caveat on the rationale that there are definitely other companies that will introduce similar functionalities, or we expect them to do that. All right, let's move on to article number 4, which is the text to speech. Some fun stuff there.
Okay, so researchers at Amazon, so they have launched the largest text-to-speech AI model, and they're claiming that it shows emergent abilities.
Thank you, Ankash. And I think I assigned this one to John.
Yeah, I would rate this as important. The emergent abilities are fairly narrowly things. So I'm not saying this thing's generally intelligent. It's just it's got new capabilities they didn't expect. Very much like the LLMs did in terms of the quality of text generation. Yeah, I found this thing amazing. I mean, the if you actually test the samples that are in the article and then go to the article underneath, it is amazing what the quality of interaction is. And I think that I'm looking for the word. I think it's called prosody, which I had to look up, but it's the prosody is the idea of it has to do with poetry, but it also has to do with the study of sounds and timing, and the subtleties of the enunciation of language. And the prosody of this stuff is amazing. And so I think it's going to be. I think a lot of the intimacy that comes with voice is lost when I have Alexa, I have Google Home, all of those. It's just it's a robot. This starts to sound like a real human being. And I think that's going to be a big deal. So I would say important.
Yeah, I agree with important. I also was fascinated, and it's a really good question. When do these capabilities emerge in the LLM, right? What's the level of data it needs to be fed to do that? The researchers, however, didn't release it, as you noticed. They are being really careful to hold off from releasing it, to experiment with it some more. But yeah, it's amazing. So I agree with important.
Yes. Paul notes something that we should do at the beginning of each of these, just give a little summary of the article for the sake of the audience. So just,
Yeah, I'll touch this a little snippet.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Just one thing I did want to note is, I mean, we talk about like these models that are 78 billion parameter or 30 billion parameter. And here we're talking about under a billion, 400 million, 150 million. Like as these models are getting fine-tuned in purpose, they're getting incredible capabilities through much smaller models. I agree, important, but that was just an interesting to note that, I expect them to be talking about billions when you read about parameters in these things, and it was all with an M, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. Michael notes, look, the way in the comments here, the way you say something makes a big difference. And I know that's true. This work out of Carnegie Mellon, that with a 60-second voice for me, they were able to tell my age within 2 years, my weight within 5 pounds, my height within an inch, my blood pressure within 10 points, and just from voice. So I think we're going to find there's amazing amounts of information. And if you look at the Disney characters, for example, a lot of times the voice actors physically look a lot like the characters, which I think is really, there's a lot more information in voice than sometimes we recognize.
Yeah, good point, John. Good point.
All right, so we'll move on. We'll go with important on the text to speech, and let's move on to article number 5 on sorry, I lost my spot here. Yeah, large action models.
Okay. So this article talks about large action models and how they have evolved in terms of what LLMs can do and what large action models can do. And they also talk about that it will take some time before large action models will be able to do really well in enterprise applications.
Thank you, Ankaj. And Adam, would you like to give
Yeah,
us?
sure. I'd love to. I find this article optional. It's too forward-looking. It's also written by a company, VoiceFlow, that is offering large action models. So of course, it's in some ways it's a marketing piece for them. Not to diminish VoiceFlow, I actually love the product. It's very easy to use. It's a great way for companies to start building logic flows. They've grown up out of like call tree and voice systems, and now have integrated the inputs of GPT-4 and some of these other things. So they already have a fairly mature product in terms of how you orchestrate those logical flows. What's important to highlight, though, is what is an LLM and a large action model. So an LLM is what we think of like a ChatGPT, and they predict what to say next in response, whereas a large action model is really thinking at a higher order about predicting what to do next. So it can break these tasks down into smaller executable chunks, which is really important long-term for agents to be successful in doing things on our behalf. So LAMs make it so that the entire flow can be probabilistic, whereas with large language models, you have much more deterministic structure, and you can't sort of have as much flexibility or capability from the model as a result. So large action models are significant. We saw the Rabbit R1, that new little device, that's a large action model as well. We're going to be seeing a lot more about LAMs, but generally this article is sort of just future looking about that. These are going to be an important thing.
Yeah, I agree with optional for this particular article. But on the futuristic side, remember we reviewed an article that predicted what type of structure, mental decision structure you can take for a particular problem. So combined with these agents, this can become really, really powerful.
I'm good for optional.
All right. I was just reading the chat here. I think we have a participant that might think it's a little bit more than optional.
Michael, yeah.
Michael, yes.
Yes.
That's
Even
okay.
as I was describing it, for the reasons I was saying about understanding the importance of large action models, I was thinking, well, maybe this is important. But
Yeah. I think because in the past, Adam, like you said, if the product is not yet available and in the market, we've kind of said, okay, it's in the future, so let's make it optional, but important to keep track of it. So from that perspective, I think it's okay to say optional.
We'll highlight it in the summary that it's a good article to read.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our next article, which is LLM agents and security again.
Yes. So this is about LLM agents hacking websites. And also this talks about how some of these LLM agents have been performing complex tasks such as blind database schema extraction and also SQL injections without human feedback.
Yeah, some heavy duty here concerns. Luda, help us. Help
So
us get this the right thing.
it goes on the heels of the prior article about lambs and the emergence of those lambs. This is very close, right? Agents are doing this more sophisticated tasks that we could do before with LLMs. So this is a great article from that perspective. In terms of the hacking websites and they did quite a bit of work understanding how do you, without telling where the vulnerabilities in the websites are, how do you do that? How do you hack the website? So they found that the chat GPT 3.5 and 4 can do that, but the open open language models cannot. So open source language models cannot. So that's interesting. But that, I think the article is optional from my perspective, but it's a very interesting use case of what is to come and where the protections need to be put in.
Thank you, Luda. I think I saw some different ratings on our sheet. So who would like to go, John or Adam?
Yeah, I would argue this thing's essential. I mean, it's like a how-to guide. First of all, if I were a hacker, man, this is like, thanks guys for doing the work. Now I know like where the vulnerabilities are, and there are at least 3 things that I found, because this not only describes the nature of the vulnerabilities, but it shows that ChatGPT-4 is much better, and it even goes down to a cost level. So hacking a website is roughly $80 when they have a human being doing it with the current tools, and they get this down to $9.81, which is still pretty expensive per website, but way cheap, like an order of magnitude almost cheaper. The other thing is I thought they did a great job about laying out the likelihood of the vulnerabilities. And the scariest thing is that ChatGPT-4 seems to be very good at doesn't have to, you just give it a website and it doesn't, you don't have to direct it as to which kind of vulnerability. It discovers it and then efficiently starts to go at it. So I would rate this thing as essential because of its specificity and its analysis in a topic that is only going to grow in time.
Mm-hmm. To me, I gave it an important because I just feel like as busy executives, you're running an entire IT organization. You need to know how to use AI for business purposes and increase revenue, but also how to protect the company. And you need to be aware, quickly, right? What are the security concerns? And I feel like the article makes it very easy to quickly pick up, okay, what are the areas that I need to keep an eye out and make sure that my CISO or, my security team is working on it. So I thought it was an easy read, to kind of extract that. And so I gave it an important, but I can, important, essential, I would say.
I was on important as well. I think to your point, you're as a busy exec, you're going to want to make sure your CISO is aware of this and that whoever their cybersecurity vendor is, whatever product it is, that they're taking the steps necessary to integrate the types of defensive measures as well, right? All of these things are arms races at the end of the day. And whoever you're with, Fortinet, Radware, whoever it is, F5, like you have to make sure you got to be going to your vendor and saying, did you see this? What are you doing about it? We need to make sure that we're partnering with someone who's going to be agile and responsive to these emerging threats.
Okay, I'll go up to important.
Thank you, Luda. It's always good to have these conversations, right? Good. Well, that really completes the review of our articles. Thank you so much, Ankaj. And I think today's going to be a busy reading day for our executives. We have marked several of them important. I think 5, right? Yeah, 5. So thank you again for your participation, and back to you, John.
Yes, well, I just want to thank everybody. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to our AI analyst team. And most of all, thanks to our sponsor, Custom GPT, .ai, which allows you to, as I say, create great agents and new tools for your organization easily and quickly. Thanks for joining, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning.